Okay, so this is Candice. Candice I've known for a little while. She's professionally Canadian. Doctor, anything else we need to say?
I don't think so.
And I don't know what the coaching's on exactly, but I've been told it's something to do with parenting.
Yes.
You have successfully bred then, yes?
I have.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well done. Can we have a round of applause? Round of applause.
Thank you.
Now, as you know, I'm not a parent. I'm only an uncle. I have worked with a lot of children, so maybe some things I can relate to, some things not so much. Hopefully, I'll at least be able to offer you some interesting points of view. I won't be, as ever in coaching, giving you advice. I'm definitely not going to tell you what to do. You know the rules. You're in charge, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so take a couple of breaths. Okay. Are we bending this child to our will somehow, or what are we doing?
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Good. How can I help?
So I struggle with when to like hold back and be like, my daughter has a lot of anxiety in trying new things. So when do I just say, bah, you know what, that's okay? And when would it be wise to maybe push her to have the experience of, I did it? So, yeah.
Okay,
so
got it. So, all right, so just to give me the background, so you have one daughter, other children?
I have two.
Okay, so there's one we're thinking of in particular.
One I'm thinking of in
Okay, so
particular,
just give me the ages, just so I can get...
She is 10.
10-year-old, okay,
Yeah.
and she has a sister...
Sister who is 8.
Okay, so, but we're mostly thinking of 10-year-old because she's a bit more anxious, something
She's a bit
like
more
this?
anxious, yeah.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like your aim is something like to know when to sort of not worry about it and when to push her to do things, is that right?
Yeah.
Let's clarify a little bit, can we get even
when
clearer?
to push her to do things versus just...
Okay, so when to give her a bit of a... And when you say push, I guess it's like you just want to encourage her to say, hey, you can do it, even if you're a bit anxious, something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
So what are your options when she's anxious? Let's just kind of like map them out. What are the options? And then we'll see like maybe which is more familiar, which you're used to.
Yeah.
So what are the options?
So often I'll just ask her if she wants to try something, and if she says no, then okay, moving on.
Okay, so acceptance.
Yeah.
All right, so there's an embodiment to that, right?
Yeah.
Like you strike me as a pretty sort of, you know, I know you're a little bit like easygoing, kind of relaxed. Like how's that one for you? Is that easy? Is it hard?
Sometimes I can get there. I'm like, yeah, okay, moving on. I think there's always a little part of me that's like, I know if you got over the hump of just stepping into the thing, that it would be so exciting.
Right, because there's always this balance, and you know, I don't have my own kids, but I know this with children generally, or just with, you know, with mentees, for example, right? It's like, do I just accept it, I want to do it, or do I say, come on, like encourage them? There's that hump, as you say, like got to kind of get past that initial thing. Yeah. So first thing to say is, having coached a lot of parents, it's almost like one of the most difficult relationships, because parents are like super attached to the well-being of their children, right? Like if it was just like, I know you coach people like a student or whatever, it'd be like, yeah, it's not so attached, right? It's different. So it can be a very tricky relationship, yeah? And it can bring up our own stuff. So I just kind of want to acknowledge that, yeah. All right. So we've got the sort of letting it be embodiment. Show me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Notice the breath. How's the breath?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah. But another part of you is kind of like, you said, like there's a contraction, is it? Show me that. Exaggerate that a little bit. So when you feel that, what is that telling you? What's your body telling you there?
I think there's a bit of like disappointment maybe in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, disappointed, and maybe some sense of, is it annoyance? You're Canadian, so we have to be careful. Frustration.
Yeah.
Canadians aren't allowed to be angry, only frustrated, okay? So it's some disappointment, some frustration.
Yeah.
I'm joking about the cultural piece, but there can be like, oh, fucking come on. Like, is there a part of you that's not almost irritated, like, with it?
I would say.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was just intuiting in my own body.
It.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we get that part out? Because culturally it's not so normal. Personality-wise, I'm guessing it's not your, like, go-to. You're not like an angry person, is my experience of you so much, right? So let's get that out, just to, like, what do you really want to say, but you're too nice a mum to say? Show me the body again.
Like that. It's like, just fucking do
Just
it.
fucking do it. Notice how the words come when the body comes, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you do the body, the word comes. So I'm not suggesting you say this to your daughter, but it's important to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
because it will come out sideways, like passive aggression. It will come out as like some annoyance with her, some else, right? So one more time, like, what would you really say if like no one was watching? We'll turn the camera off. It's like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Just fucking do it.
Just fucking
There's
do it.
There's no choice here.
There's no choice here. Great. So you're finding your inner fascist. Excellent. Okay. So because every parent, part of them is just like, do the fucking thing. Particularly if they're from a liberal country, they're a fairly liberal parent. It's sometimes a bit under the surface. You know, and sometimes my sister's like, can you get Jessica to school on time? And I'm like, get your shoes on. Like, there's part of me that just like, look, we're late. You know, there's that, let's get to school. You know, it's just, I just gotta do the thing. So, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want you to just find that one more time, that like, what is it? Like, give an example or something.
You're going to soccer.
Going to soccer. It's called football, but never mind.
Sorry,
Okay.
yes.
So you're going to soccer. You're going to soccer.
You're going to soccer.
Great. So finding that part of you, which is a bit more authoritarian, more like conservative mum, right? Yeah. And that's healthy. That's one side of things. Yeah. And then another part of you that's kind of angry, frustrated.
Yeah.
But just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a positive intent behind that, isn't there? Which is just from the beginning of the coaching. Tell me if I'm wrong. It sounded something like, when you know she can do it, sometimes that like little bit of encouragement or even like pushing can be helpful.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Acceptance is half the deal.
Yeah.
Being kind, being accepting, but you know, like the mama bird, it pushes the bird out of the nest at some point, doesn't it, to make it fly? You know, it's not like, well, you can fly if you want. It actually nudges it. Does that analogy make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, give me a push. Yeah, push, come on.
The cushion is sliding back.
Yeah, just position yourself. We could do this standing, but we've got the camera set up, so we might as well. Yeah. Okay, so from this pushing energy, what would you tell her? Speak Canadian to me. What's the words you use? So, by the way, her thumbs just like went around mine like a bit of control. It's really subtle, but she was like, I'm in control now. What's a phrase you would tell her? Because you're not going to say, just fucking do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's an actually appropriate phrase?
I'd like you to try it this once, and then we'll talk about it.
You know, can I tell you how this feels? I feel like submissive. I'm like, okay, mom. I'm like, I'm not used to hearing her like this, actually, right? One more time.
I'd like you to try this at least once, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, you wouldn't just like her to try it.
You are going to try this once.
Right, okay.
And then we'll talk about it.
You're going to try this once, and if you really hate it, then you can soften, right? There's the other side, yeah? One more time.
You're going to try this once, and then we'll talk about it.
Boom. Ooh, how's that?
Ooh, actually that feels not bad.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you still breathing?
Yes.
Great. Some clients would be like hating themselves at this point. They'd be like, oh, I'm such a bad person, I'm such a fascist. But actually, my sense is like, you're ready for this.
Yeah.
That's the feeling. It's what I call an emergent embodiment. So it's an embodiment which is almost there, and I didn't need to do much to get it out. It wasn't like a whole new thing. It's in shadow that we have to do therapy on. It's some clients that's like that. You know, I'm a bad person if I tell my child what to do. We're not that Northern Californian, right? So, like, I'm feeling that's emergent, that's there. Yeah. So a little simple practice for that, like just do a push-up. Or like a chaturanga, you know? So when you know you need to have this conversation, like literally go next door, lean on the wall, do a push-up on the floor, find that pushing embodiment again, and then you know what to say. Good? Okay. You want to just do that as an experiment, like for the next week?
Yeah.
Try doing a couple of things like that. The other thing to bear in mind is that your family systems are homeostatic, meaning that they try and stay the same. Okay, so you're gonna get some resistance to this. You're gonna get some like pushback or response. Children like the Borg. They like adapt and start. You know the Borg in Star Trek. It's a Star Trek reference. No.
No, but I know
they'll like find some other way to adapt. So you might well need like a different strategy, or you might get like, oh, mom, you always make me do things. You're so mean. At least I love you when you used to be nice. You might get some sort of emotional blackmail or some strategy. So, how do you feel about that? If that happens?
Oh yeah, that I know well.
You know that already? Okay, she knows that trick already.
Yes.
Yeah, and remember, you could always touch back in and like literally maybe touching the heart area, touching back in and being like, this is coming from love, right? It's not coming from abuse. It's coming because you want her to, have the best for her, right? How would you express that?
Yeah, I think for her, my hope for her is to try these things and develop this confidence of I can do it because I know that it would be fun. So it's coming from a good place.
Coming from a good place. Yeah, and remind yourself of that because you might have a little voice, the little Canadian voice saying, be nice and don't tell children what to do. It's like the liberal parent kind of voice, right? Does it make sense? But my sense is you're almost grown out of that anyway, so I'm pretty confident you can do this, yeah. Some clients at this point, they're going to need way more support. But in this case, just from the feel of her embodiment, she was quite good at the pushing. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty clear. She's got what she needs. So anything else to finish?
No, that feels good.
Okay, as ever, it's a total pleasure working with you. Good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Woo, round of applause. So, let's keep the camera on because I want to do, if you could step aside, Kenneth, and I'll break down a few things I did because I think it might be useful for people. So keep the camera on. And then we'll do questions. Okay, so, all right. So just to I think it's kind of like a nice feature for anyone watching this and for you guys afterwards as well to like break down some of the things we did. So it was the normal, just building relationship and rapport connection at the beginning, tiny bit of centering. I was also just getting a sense of how she is as a client. Like she seemed pretty well resourced, seemed like, I know we have good relationship, but you can't take that for granted. So it's like, all right, the relationship feels good. And I was like, okay, we can just dive into some work here. There's a little bit of like context setting. Okay, was it 2 children? What age is this child? That's going to change it if the child's 5 or if the child's 18, right? So just as embodiment coaches, don't be afraid to just get the context, like the information. And sometimes that's much, like yesterday, how long have you been in this relationship? Yeah. Good. And then we acknowledged the difficulty of parental relationships. So acknowledging that they can be really sticky, that's important to acknowledge that if people are struggling with intimacy or parental relationships. I also sort of acknowledge like, hey, I'm not a parent, but maybe I can still help. So this is one of the questions earlier, like what do you do if your client's a CEO and you're not, or your client's living in a war zone and you're not, right? So my sense was, okay, I have basic trust here, even though she knows I'm not a parent, I've acknowledged it, but I had enough trust to continue. Yeah. We looked at the different embodiments, so there was a more accepting one. Understanding the kind of cultural piece there was important, like sort of liberal Canadian parenting context. So we can't be culture blind in any of our. Imagine if this was Ukrainian mum. This would be a very, very different, or Italian, right? It's going to be a very different conversation. And then we got her to acknowledge that there's a denied emotion. So one of the denied emotions in Canada and in the left and in Candice personally, there's 3 different levels, is like anger, particularly like anger towards children can be really denied. We talked about that earlier, it's shadow. And also denying the authoritative part. So if someone was really right-wing and East European, it might even be the opposite, denying the more soft, accepting part, right? If male, East European, say Russian or something, you'd find a different denial. So finding that part of her that was like frustrated, notice the language, it was frustrated, not angry. And then, okay, there's a positive intent within that, right? So the acceptance part, and then she actually gave me the word push right at the beginning. Did you hear that? Right at the beginning, she said push the child into something. We found a nice analogy of that, the bird pushing the other bird out the nest. So it kind of helps make it, if you give like a nice metaphor, it can help make it more acceptable. Does that make sense? Like if you say breathe with your belly like a baby, or that's different from breathe with your baby like a lion. Breathe with your belly like a lion. Same breathing, but you're giving a different metaphor for a different person. Yeah. And then we just did the somatic practice, and as soon as she got the embodiment, the words came. Yeah, just giving her a little practice, and then a way to take that home, a simple way for her to actually find that embodiment when she needed it. And then I kind of, because I know what children are like, I predicted like there might be some resistance, so we kind of just went back to the sort of positive, loving intent behind it. Yeah. Makes sense? All right, a little bit of a breakdown of the coaching. So turn the camera off and do some Q&A.